Open your soul to a transcendent blessing as this sacred message illuminates your path with heavenly light. One was selected. How are you still breathing? Is a question that reverberates across the spiritual worlds, spoken by both angels and demons. With everything, and we mean everything, unleashed against you, how are you still on this planet? You stand against all cosmic odds, radiating light in a world that is meant to obliterate it, while the dark sorcerers, energy vampires, and spiritual assassins have all taken their shots. Stay if this strikes a deep chord with you and awakens an old part of your spirit. However, you are free to depart if these words seem unfamiliar to you or if they don't kindle that inner fire of knowledge. In the spiritual world, every interaction you have is already recorded, and this one is no different. Rumors on the street talk of impossible survivors, 9 live souls who have burnt through each and every one of them to arrive at this precise moment. They refer to you as the chosen one, not because you made a simple decision, but because the cosmos itself picked you to face what would kill normal mortals. What the whispers don't tell you, though, is that you not only lived, but you also became an expert in spiritual warfare while everyone else was asleep. This is your tale. The reason you're still alive is this. Your 9 spiritual deaths and your improbable resurrection are chronicled here. Your first death is usually unexpected. It's the death of innocence rather than a physical one. The realization that your life is actually a battlefield masquerading as everyday existence. This realization typically occurs as a result of betrayal, mysterious attacks that appear out of nowhere, or the realization that the game contains rules you were never taught. You learnt, often painfully, that spiritual combat is as real as the air you breathe. Most people live their lives thinking that spiritual warfare is merely a metaphor, something found only in religious lectures and ancient books. It is battled with vigor, alertness, and purpose. The casualties caused by the weapons are horribly real, although being invisible to the human eye. Emotional wounds that appear to recur just as they start to heal, disorientation that defies reason, and tiredness that sleep cannot alleviate. The battleground isn't some far-off place. Rather, it's your heart, your thoughts, and your core identity. The war is being waged against your self-worth, lucidity, and tranquility. Distracting your soul from its divine mission and leaving you spiritually destitute is the enemy's stunningly straightforward tactic. You learnt this after your life seemed to fall apart in 3 weeks. Your closest friends turned against you for fictitious reasons. Your business endeavors mysteriously failed, and your relationships dissolved without warning. Although it appeared to be poor luck to the outside world, you soon saw the timing, patterns, and coordinated nature of the attacks. Your light was being hunted. For you, it might have been the unexpected onset of panic attacks whenever you attempted to follow your passion, the very thing that linked you to your purpose, or the way that gadgets broke down around you just as you were about to make a breakthrough, or the way that some people seemed pre-programmed to interrupt you with fictitious emergencies at pivotal times. You learnt from your first death that you are aware and not paranoid. You're finally seeing things, not just dreaming about them. Furthermore, once that sight is activated, the cozy sense of safety cannot be restored. You came to understand that you were trapped in a spiritual warfare matrix and that the only way out was to fully understand its regulations. If you feel the divine love, now is the time to share. Click the Super Thank You button on YouTube to contribute $50 or more and help us spread God's blessings. What you do is being watched and serves as a seed, and in the future it will come back to you a millionfold. The realization that your biggest enemy is not some external demon, but rather the clever manner your own mind has been used against you, strategic confusion, was the catalyst for your second death. With extreme precision, the opponent uses their masterwork against you. It works against you like this. You feel focused, clear, and grounded when your soul and truth are in harmony. You trust your gut and move with purpose. This alignment is purposefully upset by strategic disorientation, which takes the form of energy attacks intended to break your mind apart, but look like outside events. You learn to spot the warning signs, unexpected, seemingly unplanned episodes of anxiety, particularly when you're about to make big decisions. Arguments that suddenly break out with people you care about just when you need them most. And mental fog that rolls in like a blanket just when you're trying to work towards your objectives or connect with your purpose. These are indicators of spiritual influence that is especially directed at you. They are not coincidences. Every time you were about to start something new or advance in your life, you saw that chaos would break out all around you. Your family would unexpectedly require crisis intervention. Your ex would cause legal problems, or a close relative would experience a medical emergency. For years, you believed that your timing was simply bad, but then you saw that it was too good to be true. The realization that strategic misunderstanding causes you to participate in your own spiritual destruction was the turning point. The assaults are not merely external. They also set off interior reactions that increase the harm. Confusion feeds confusion, terror breeds fear, and doubt multiplies doubt. The opponent didn't anticipate this, though, because you could disrupt the pattern once you identified it. You discovered how to take a moment when you're confused, to take a deep breath when you're feeling anxious, and to find calm when everything around you is chaotic. You gained what may be referred to as spiritual sobriety, which is the capacity to maintain composure while intoxicated with energy. You found that the confusion wasn't caused by your incapacity to think clearly, but rather by frequencies that were intended to interfere with your innate ability to think clearly. Once you recognize this, you might take precautions to safeguard your mental space and identify when you were being attacked psychically. One of your most treasured delusions was destroyed by your third death, that the people you care about could never be used against you. This death occurred when you started to understand that spiritual attacks frequently go through human conduits. People who unknowingly or intentionally become conduits for evil energy that is specifically directed at you. Possibly, the most agonizing realization of them was this one. Fighting nameless spiritual monsters is one thing, but realizing that your sister, closest friend, romantic partner, or even your own child may be unintentionally acting against your ultimate good is quite another. These conduits are typically wounded souls with unresolved trauma that has left them vulnerable, which can be used by forces trying to get to you. They are not bad people. You are the main goal, but they unknowingly become foot troops in a war they are unaware they are fighting. As soon as you knew what to look for, the indicators became obvious. You recognized the drama generators, those who dragged you into mayhem time and time again, made you prove yourself again, and made you doubt your sanity with their version of events. Before the previous issues were completely resolved, they spawned new ones that needed your energy to solve. You were aware of emotional vampires, people who sapped your vitality without providing anything of value in return. They left you feeling exhausted and called when your vibration was at its peak. They discussed their issues, but they never put your suggestions into practice. They were more excited to celebrate your failures than your victories. You were able to identify gaslighters, people who caused you to question your own experiences, recollections, and perceptions. They persuaded you that your spiritual experiences were illusions, that your limits were self-serving, and that your intuition was incorrect. You recognized the false prophets, those who seemed to be mentors or spiritual counselors but quietly steered you away from your actual mission. They gave lessons that seemed sensible, but they actually made you more perplexed. They presented themselves as essential to your development. You learnt from your third death that love is not always accompanied by support. The folks who say they love you the most may be the ones who are most at risk from your light. Because you never anticipate them, the people closest to you can occasionally turn into the enemy's most potent weapons. Only those who have endured hell with a smile and emerged radiant are eligible to join the Obsidian Inner Order. You came here to remember who you are, not to win people over. We also remember you. This is a war room for the spiritual elite, a headquarters for people who leap time, break curses, and bend reality. It is not a community. Weekly Zoom calls feature live frequency upgrades during which the curtain lifts and dragons speak codes that unlock. Because, let's face it, most people can't manage what you carry inside of them. You'll have access to elite downloads, energy technologies, and ancient transmissions that weren't intended for the general public. You revive rather than heal. You take back. You rule. You rule. The time trap, one of the enemy's most advanced tactics, was exposed by your fourth death. This death occurred when you started to understand that spiritual attacks on you are not sporadic, but rather are timed to inflict the greatest amount of harm on your particular life patterns. Dark forces and energy vampires observe you. They pick up on your patterns, rhythms, weak points, and periods of vulnerability. Then, a few moves ahead, they attack you with the accuracy of a professional chess player. You were aware of the breakthrough sabotage pattern. Everything goes wrong right before you're about to make a significant breakthrough, such as a new relationship, a job chance, or a spiritual enlightenment. Old adversaries reappear and target you in particular. You are either drawn into drama that saps your energy, or unexpected emergencies require your attention. Brother, whatever is done in faith is returned in God's abundance. You can donate $100 using the Super Thank You button and be part of this divine call. If your roots are connected to Him, your fruit will be blessed. You encounter the success siphon. When you do anything noteworthy, individuals from your past appear as though they have been called to your accomplishment. They want to get back in touch, to be a part of what you've created, to remind you of your former self. Their presence is burdensome, and your happiness in your accomplishment wanes after engaging with them. Former lovers or friends who have wronged you want to make apologies, but their timing is questionable since they are targeting you. This is known as a false reconciliation. They show up when things are going well in your life, when you're at last at peace, or when you've created something lovely. Instead of feeling sincere, their apologies come across as manipulative. You encountered a manufactured emergency when someone close to you unexpectedly needs you immediately, right before you commit to something significant, like a relationship, commercial endeavor, or spiritual practice. Although the emergency is genuine, the timing points more towards planning than chance. You learnt from your fourth death that timing isn't neutral in your life. What happens to you might be just as significant in spiritual combat as what actually occurs. When you're reaching new heights, you learn to identify these tendencies and safeguard your energy during times of vulnerability. The idea of energy harvesting, the deliberate stealing of your spiritual force by individuals who are unable to produce their own, was made clear by your sixth death. Because it exposed how some people have centered their entire lives around absorbing your light, this death was especially cruel. In particular, energy harvesting works against you in a number of ways. You learnt that some people profit off the drama, strife, and mayhem they bring into your life. This phenomenon is known as emotional harvesting. They argue with you to get emotional energy they can take from you, not to settle disputes. They are fed by every response you make, every shout you raise, and every tear you shed. When they leave a disagreement, you feel exhausted, but they feel energized. You mentioned creative harvesting, which is the practice of others stealing your discoveries, ideas, and sources of inspiration. They take up residence beside you, take in your ideas, and then claim them as their own. They want to take advantage of your talents without giving you credit since they are especially drawn to your inventiveness and visionary character. Perhaps the most pernicious kind was spiritual harvesting, which you recognized. In your life, these harvesters pose as teachers or spiritual seekers. They surround themselves with you and other advanced souls, attend your courses, and become part of your spiritual communities, not to develop, but to absorb your spiritual energy. You encountered a phenomenon known as success harvesting, in which individuals identify with your accomplishments and pretend to be supporters while actually draining the vitality that brought you success. They offer you partnerships that only enrich them while depleting you, advice that causes confusion, and assistance that breeds dependency. You saw that, in spite of your years of assistance and direction, some of the people in your life never seemed to mature. They showed up to every event you suggested, asked enlightening questions, and seemed really interested in their development. But after working with them, you started to feel exhausted, and you realized that their presence somehow sapped the vitality of the whole space. You came to see that they were there to take advantage of you, not to learn from you. You learned from your fifth death that not everyone around you who seems to be on a spiritual path is truly doing so. Some are just eating what you produce along the way, following the trail of light you leave behind. One of the most advanced tools in the enemy's arsenal against you was exposed by your sixth death, the phony apology. This death occurred when you realized that certain apologies are Trojan horses used to reclaim your energy field, rather than sincere attempts at reconciliation. False apologies directed at you are masterful manipulations that take advantage of your innate empathy, your need for peace, and your spiritual dedication to forgiveness. They come at just the right times for you to find calm, have solid boundaries, and feel protected and invigorated. You became aware of the structure of phony excuses made against you. They exhibit impeccable timing, never showing up when you need real help the most or when you're having difficulties. They show up when you're doing well, when you've moved on, and when you've created something lovely on your own. With folks from your past, you notice this trend time and time again. Whenever you achieved a new level of success or happiness, they would contact you with long-winded apologies and demands to begin anew. They would be caring and supportive at first if you let them back into your life, but over time they would start to erode your self-esteem, spread rumors that hurt your other relationships, and cause drama that took up all of your energy. Like clockwork, the cycle would repeat each time you raised. You learnt from your sixth death that energy vampires deliberately exploit apologies as bait. Their goal is to gain access to you, not your forgiveness. They want to continue feeding off of you. They don't want to mend the relationship. Perhaps the most pernicious kind of deception directed at you was exposed by your seventh death, the criminal who resurfaces in your life under false pretenses. This death occurred when you came to the realization that some people have turned their suffering into a weapon, utilizing their anguish to manipulate you into lowering your limits out of guilt. These people have mastered the art of coming across to you as helpless victims in need of your protection. But in actuality, they are predators who use your victim status as cover to take advantage of your sympathy. They tell you tragic tales of how they have been mistreated by life, how others have abandoned them, and how hopeless and alone they are. Because it activates your innate healing tendencies, the victim disguise works especially well against you. You're wired to support, care for, and encourage other people. Every cell in your body wants to react with compassion and support when someone shows up to you feeling broken and powerless. Here's the trap they make for you, though. These pretend victims want control over you, not to be healed. They are looking for your attention, not your answers. They want to use their trauma as a weapon against your caring nature, not to overcome it. In your life, the pattern usually goes like this. They tell you their painful past, often with graphic details intended to arouse your compassion, and then they share the sob story with you. The story's emotional effect is more important than its veracity, regardless of whether it is entirely made up or somewhat true. You notice this tendency with individuals who, in spite of your months of intensive support, didn't seem to improve. Every time you attempted to set limits with them, they would tell you more dramatic tales about their life, fabricate crises that needed your care after hours, and threaten suicide. You understood that they were looking for a permanent carer who could be manipulated by guilt and fear, not for your healing. You learned from your sixth death that not everyone who says they have been hurt around you genuinely wants to get better. Some have turned their suffering into their identity, their trauma into their line of work, and their victimization into a weapon against your empathy. The idea that forgiving always necessitates making amends with those who have wronged you was destroyed by your ninth death. This death occurred when you recognized that forgiveness-related spiritual teachings had been utilized as a weapon against you, keeping you caught in destructive patterns while masquerading as spiritual development. Because it takes advantage of your own spiritual growth, this trap is very powerful against you. The very thing that keeps you chained to people who hurt you is your desire to be kind, loving, and enlightened. However, your seventh death brought to light an important reality. Forgiveness is an interior process that doesn't call for reconciliation with your perpetrators on the outside. You can refuse to let someone into your life even after you have forgiven them totally. You can set protective boundaries around yourself and let go of all animosity. Even though you know that someone's presence is detrimental to your well-being, you might still love them from a distance. Real forgiveness is about releasing yourself from the weight of the other person's poisonous energy, not about the other person at all. To go forward free from the burden of resentment, you must clear your own spiritual space. In your life, you come to understand the difference between reconciliation and forgiveness. Forgiveness is a self-serving, personal, and unilateral action. External in nature, reconciliation necessitates sincere change on the part of both parties. You found it difficult to grasp this idea when interacting with harmful family members. Family members accused you of being unloving and cruel each time you attempted to set limits with them. They attempted to guilt you back into unhealthy relationships by quoting spiritual teachings like compassion and unconditional love. The realization that supporting destructive behavior wasn't love, but rather continued the loop that kept everyone stuck in dysfunction, was the turning point. Saying no, setting limits, and letting people deal with the fallout from their decisions are all occasionally necessary for true love. You learnt from your seventh death that forgiveness is a gift to yourself, not a way to get out of jail for others who have wronged you. If you want to witness God's miracles, act now. Contribute $100 or more through Super Thank You on YouTube. Your offering is like a seed that comes back to you when planted. Let His light illuminate your steps. Every donation is an echo in His plan. The death of your victim persona is the most significant of your 9 and last deaths. At this point, you become aware that you are the hunter and not the prey. With the skill of a skilled warrior, you have learned to identify every trap intended for you, decipher every manipulation aimed at you, and safeguard your energy. You become someone who stops attacks instead of someone who survives them because of this death. You get what may be referred to as spiritual sobriety, the capacity to see through illusions with absolute clarity, to spot energy vampires before they seize you, and to remain composed in the face of pandemonium outside. Energy sovereignty is attained. You no longer require approval or confirmation from others to recognize your value. Because you derive your feeling of worth from within, you are impervious to manipulative techniques that prey on insecurities. You are able to appropriately evaluate individuals and circumstances without being emotionally invested because you have mastered discernment over judgment. You have a sharp vision, but don't spend it on bitterness or rage towards people who have harmed you. You become an expert at setting boundaries. They are unambiguous, constant, and unassailable. You just maintain your boundaries. You don't have to justify or explain them to others. Spiritual immunity is the ability to withstand energetic attacks that are aimed at you. What used to make you unsteady for days hardly registers as a blip on your awareness anymore. You become more purposeful. You understand your purpose and why you are here. This clarity serves as a barrier against diversions and distractions that other people may attempt to put in your way. By learning to flow with universal rhythms instead of imposing results, you develop divine timing faith. You are almost impossible to control through timing traps that used to derail you because of this alignment. You were a warrior in training, and your ninth death shows that you were never a victim at all. All of the attacks, betrayals, and manipulations you endured were meant to prepare you for this moment of mastery. You now know how to turn attacks into strength, poison into medicine, and darkness into light. After surviving all 9 deaths, you reach a condition of being known as the ascension procedure, in which you completely transcend spiritual battle rather than only surviving it. You've mastered operating at such a high frequency that you are no longer susceptible to low vibrational attacks. This ascension is about changing your relationship with the world, not about running away from it. You navigate life like a spiritual ninja, caring but not naive, involved but not entangled, present yet safe. When you attain frequency sovereignty, your energy field becomes so powerful and distinct that it immediately wards off harmful forces aimed at you. Your frequency has become your natural condition, so you don't need to work to keep it up. You get prophetic perception, which allows you to identify intentions and energy patterns before they fully materialize in your world. You are aware of whom to believe, what possibilities to seize, and what circumstances to stay away from. You are miraculously shielded from harm by the alignment of synchronicity. Doors close precisely when they should to keep you out of hazardous situations. The correct people show up at the right time to provide you advice or assistance. You can construct your reality much more quickly when you manifest exponential creation. Now, things that used to take months or years to manifest happen in a matter of days or weeks. You automatically start drawing other awakened souls to you, making you a gravitational force. For those who are prepared to take charge of their own lives, your presence serves as a lighthouse. Perhaps most significantly, though, is that you become a teacher in the ascension procedure simply by being there, without having to give formal teaching. People can sense your energy and are curious about how you were able to attain such calm, such clarity, and such unwavering strength. It may not seem to you that your individual triumph symbolizes something far more significant, a change in human awareness across generations. Mending ancestral trauma that has been passed down through your family lines for generations is more than just mending oneself. Every abuse cycle you interrupt, every victimization pattern you break, and every chain of manipulation you disrupt causes reverberations that go both forward and backward in time. Your victory ultimately brings a stop to the suffering of your ancestors, and your metamorphosis leaves your descendants with a more wholesome and vibrant legacy. Dark forces understand that you pose a threat to centuries-old control systems, which is why the attacks on you were so fierce and well-planned. The entire concept of human enslavement starts to fall apart if enough chosen ones like you are liberated and attain spiritual sovereignty. You are a living example of how trauma need not be permanent, how victims may turn into winners, how to end the cycle of abuse, how to win the spiritual struggle, and that light always triumphs over evil. Every story that has been used to keep humanity caught in cycles of suffering, fear, and limitation is called into question by your very being. Finally, as a fully awakened chosen one, you realize that your journey simply spirals upward into new depths of mastery and service, never truly ending. You come to see that what you believed to be graduation was really only the conclusion of your foundational education. The real job now starts. You now assume your responsibilities as a protector of other awakening souls, a guardian of human consciousness, and a ray of hope in a world in dire need of the realization that change is possible. You realize that each individual you assist in reawakening causes another wave to sweep through the collective consciousness. Each soul you help escape spiritual enslavement undermines the control structures that have ruled humanity for thousands of years. You understand that your survival, metamorphosis, and mastery are gifts to all of humanity, not simply your own triumph. You are living evidence that the dark can be vanquished, that the chosen ones can not only live but flourish, and that the unthinkable is achievable. You did really have 9 lives, and you used each and every one of them to reach this point, as the rumors on the street said. You not only survived what was intended to destroy you, but you flourished and used every setback to fortify your spirituality. You managed to turn every setback into a prelude to something bigger and every betrayal into insight. You're more than simply alive. You're a living marvel who has mastered the art of dancing with peril and emerging stronger. The cosmos itself honors your bravery in continuing to rise despite insurmountable circumstances, and your journey is far from over. You now realize that you were constantly rising rather than only surviving. Additionally, your ascension illuminates the path for all other selected souls who are still struggling to overcome the darkness, discovering their own 9 lifetimes, and realizing that they are also miracles among us. The conflict is over. You prevailed.